Thank you, Hendrik. It was really a fruitful first session. Thank you again to all the presenters. And as you mentioned, there are lots of questions streaming in, and we will definitely get to them. We know that the experts will be getting to all your questions and comments post the webinar. To all the participants, also, you don't have to wait until the end of the broadcast to sign the pledge. I've just signed the pledge, and I must say, I love the powerful simple wording that it says. It says, I am deeply concerned and serious about the sustainability and health of my household, business, community, and farm. Together with other like-minded people, I am therefore keen to learn and collaborate to regenerate the health of our farms, food, and community for the sake of the current and future generations. I have a 2-year-old, and when I hear that, I think about him. Because I care about the land and the future well-being of our people, I would like to show my support and by signing the manifesto. I've just done that. You can go there now. You simply have to go to healtheland.co.za and you then pledge. We will now move over to our second session that will be led by Kobus Roda. Kobus is a soil scientist and plant nutritionist. He integrates his two passions, that being a soil scientist and also a financial planner, by being active in no-till conservation and regenerative agriculture, with special emphasis on training and establishing emerging farmers to become financially independent commercial farmers. I now give over to Kobus, who will be leading the second session on Heal the People. Over to you, Kobus.
Thank you very much for spending time with us this morning. And you know, I thought this morning over all these projects and stuff that we are busy again, and I couldn't believe how sort of inside everything is coincide in terms of what we try to launch this initiative or drive of Heal the People, Heal the Land, and Heal the People. You know, what I'm going to try and do is to connect the dots a little bit and speak about, you've heard now this wonderful work that the farmers are doing in South Africa, and it's not a pipe dream. It's actually happening, and people are producing wonderful, healthy food, which we now think we must connect to the people. And for me as well, I'm a soil scientist, as you rightly said, Dawn, and it took me some time to realize, how do you connect the land with the people? And if we go to my slides, what I'll do is, I'll sort of just tease the audience a little bit to discuss up front, give them a little bit of what we are going to talk about. But we have really wonderful participants and speakers, discussing topics that I think fit so well in with this whole initiative of Heal the Land and obviously Heal the People. And I want to say up front that we are not at all, especially if we move to Heal the People and discuss the social cohesion in South Africa, we are not trying to criticize anybody or any institution. And but like Dr. Prinsloo has said in the beginning of the webinar, that obviously if we talk about people and social cohesion, it is industry, it is society, and obviously it's politics. So I want to put it up front that we are not criticizing anybody, but we have to engage in constructive dialogue. All right, so let us start, my introduction, and Ricardo, if we can go to the next slide. I see it's not working on my side. Yes, thank you. Like I said, you've heard all the biological processes in the soil, the wonderful work that's been done there, and on the left hand, you see they Heal the Land, Heal the People. I just thought to sort of help you, like I said, it took me some time to understand this and discover this. Why heal the land, heal the people? So, you know, if you look at this slide, you know, from the biological processes that we've healed now in the soil or trying to heal, it goes to the obviously to food, and food is this conduit of goodness. Now I've put there in brackets. This is now referring to what we will discuss later on, our social cohesion. And I'm asking the question: there is food the common denominator, perhaps? And then we use this food, obviously, for centuries and ages to heal the people eat the food. And you know, it was when I'm thinking of what is actually happening now in the world, that you know, with COVID-19, everything came to a standstill except for agriculture. And don't you find it interesting that it, you know, we can stop everything and all in the world, but can we really stop having food? What will happen? How many people will survive if we don't have this food that we are talking about? So, and then we go to this restorative and regenerative mindset, and you can see the circle on the right hand side, the arrow goes up again. So I just want to sort of explain that this is what we are talking about in terms of regenerative agriculture. But in South Africa specifically, if we think about our social cohesion and the process that we are busy with, we have to talk about restoration, and we have to address it. And that's why we thought the heal the land, heal the people connection is so fantastic. But if you think it is fantastic, wait for the next slide, where we say that or show you how the food is connected. You know, the process in the soil is connected to the human gut. And if we can have the next slide, please, Ricardo. Obviously, you know, before I go there, I want to commend Food for Mzansi to have this seminar today and to link it to this Sustainable Gastronomy Day, which was announced by the United Nations. And what is sustainable gastronomy? If we go to the next slide, we'll see there that gastronomy is sometimes called the art of food. And then it brings us to sustainability. What is sustainability? Is the idea that something is done in a way that is not wasteful or our natural resources and can be continued into the future without being detrimental to our environment or health. Now, that is environment or health. That's exactly what we are talking about. Sustainable gastronomy, therefore, means cuisine that takes into account where the ingredients are from, how the food is grown, and how it gets to our markets and eventually to our plates. Again, it is actually connecting where we come from and what we've listened to just now and watched the video, where the food is grown and how it is grown and how it ends up in our system. Now, this is the most important slide for our session, where you will see they heal the land and heal the people. And then you see our gut. The bacterial processes in soil is similar to that in our gut system. And therefore, food is the connector of microbial systems. Our population is, generally speaking, overfed and undernourished. And you'll see later from a presentation from Dr. Jaap Nott how this fits in. Chemicals act as an endocrine disruptor. Chemicals block the alkaloid pathways that operate in the front line of our immune systems. And therefore, we say, if we look properly after our soil and regenerate it or restore it, heal it, and that food comes into our systems, we look after our gut and we obviously look after our health. So this is the portion where the link is then from those healthy soils producing healthy foods, and then actually we are healing our people. And then I've put this in, I'm not an expert on this, but we can't talk about people in South Africa if we don't discuss or speak about the social cohesion. Now, this is from the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation policy brief in 2018, where they say social cohesion is linked to more stable and participatory democracies, greater economic productivity and growth, inclusivity and tolerance, effective conflict management and resolution, and the generally better quality of life for people. The results there suggested that, amongst others, social cohesion in South Africa increased between 2008 and 2011, although the trend thereafter is less clear and a longer time series is required. I wonder why, but we will leave it there. Higher levels of per capita income and employment are positively associated with higher social cohesion. Poverty, unemployment, and service delivery protests are negatively correlated with social cohesion. Now, if you think what is going on in South Africa today, it's not a foreign thing to sort of understand what is going on here. Service delivery, poverty, employment. And then obviously our municipal policy and competence and governance are also closely associated with higher social cohesion. And you can think the negative part of it is, if we don't have good governance and competent people running our institutions and government at large, we may not have this good social cohesion that we all strive for in South Africa. And before I go there, one of the speakers, one of the articles that I've reviewed called South Africa the poster country for reconciliation and solving problems, since 1994. And we have lost that. And maybe, through our session, our endeavor would be to see if we can't come back to this social cohesion and the role regenerative agriculture can play in this. Now, let us start with our sessions, and we go to the first speaker and the first session, where we will look at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we are asking Tsepo Morokong and Siwapiwe Marubela to lead us in this session. Tsepo Morokong is a senior agricultural economist at the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, and Siwapiwe Madubela is an international affairs and social public policy specialist. And they will take us through the session. And, Tsepo, if you are online, please take us through this.
Yes, I'm online,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all. I'll be taking you through this section, trying to look at the Sustainable Development Goals and relating them to regenerative agriculture, and also looking at the Fourth Industrial Revolution. What are some of the developments which have been happening? Yes, so Ricardo, you can move me to the next slide. Thank you very much. So we are all familiar with that the United Nations members, who are about 193, they have adopted the Sustainable Development Goals and as a framework for global cooperation and development for the period 2015 all the way to 2030. And this was adopted in September. And we know that the goals that were set there were quite ambitious, but one of the factors that led all these nations to agree was the fact that they could see that the world economy was not heading in the right trajectory. Hence, they decided that it's about time they ensure that there is shared prosperity, there is inclusive societies, and the protection of the environment, which pretty much represent the three pillars of sustainability. And all these ideas, they are also captured in South Africa's National Development Plan, And specifically, Chapter 5, one of the objectives speaks about environmental sustainability and resilience, where we are looking at the importance that it's very important for us to have increased investment in new agricultural technologies, research, and the development of adaptation strategies for the protection of rural livelihoods and the expansion of commercial agriculture. And that is also linked to Chapter 6, which recognizes the importance of inclusive rural economy. And this is primarily where we find agriculture. And agriculture is seen as that sector that has the potential to create more job opportunities, not only at farm level, but even post the farm gate. We can move to the next slide. So you're back a bit. Backwards. Sorry, you went forward too many times. Yes, yes, and no. So one of the things that happens. Yes, the next one. Yes, one of the things that happens is that whenever you speak about agriculture, it's almost impossible to not mention the word food security. And I think food security is central when you discuss agriculture. And according to the World Food Summit, they define that food security only exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. And I think it challenges us not to see from food security only from a point of view of production, but to have a holistic approach to a value chain system. And it speaks about this food being accessible, and the market should be competitive so that people can afford this food. And most importantly, what regenerative agriculture addresses is making sure that the substrate, the basis which the food has been grown, is healthy, so that the people who consume those products, it does not have a negative impact on their health and the like. And I think regenerative agriculture, it kind of encapsulates, it embodies these ideas. And another thing, again, looking at South Africa in comparison to other countries in the world, the food security index show that our country is ranked in the 48th position from a total of 113 countries. And unpacking this index, looking at the sub indicators which inform the overall score that we got, they looked at things like food affordability, availability, and quality and safety. And with affordability, it is clear that if we are ranking in the 56th position, it means the prices or the affordability of food in our country is almost average, because it's almost half of those countries. But and also we are doing very well in terms of it's above average availability of food. But when it comes to quality and safety, we can see that we are almost average as well. And I think regenerative agriculture has a significant role to play in that regard, ensuring that the food that we produce is healthy. And these are the sustainable development goals. We know that they are there to ensure that we leave no one behind. It's a blueprint that the universe is following. And what comes central to the issues that regenerative agriculture can be said that it addresses, either directly or indirectly, is agriculture, poverty, elimination of poverty, extreme poverty, zero hunger, good and yes, good health and well-being, that is producing food that does not use any toxics, and also clean water and sanitation. We know there's no use of fertilizers and chemicals which normally road to the rivers, contaminating the rivers and all those things. Responsible production and consumption, we also relate with that one, that there's integrity in the value chain and how things are produced. Climate change, we know minimum or no tillage, which ensures that the soil sequestrate carbon, which speaks to that point 13. And also marine life below waters, which speaks to marine life. We know that regenerative agriculture does not contribute negatively to that. And also life on land, which speaks to terrestrial ecosystems, which is something that aligns to regenerative agriculture, because we know that it is meant to farm with nature and not against nature. But also, lastly, the most important one is the one of partnership, that for us to achieve the sustainable development goals, it's going to take the collective, it's going to require everyone who's a stakeholder in agriculture, and that also includes the consumers and primarily also the farmers. Next slide, please. Yes, and the heal the land, heal the people. I had a first-hand experience of this when I visited one of the villages in South Africa. It's called Motale. The community there was suffering with massive problems of soil erosion. The roads were degraded, so many things were eroded. But then immediately they adopted a simple intervention in the form of using rock pack structures to reduce and stop soil erosion. I was so surprised that that resource called soil, it was able to act as a basis on which other economic activities could happen. As you can see there on the right, on your y-axis is the annual benefit of of reducing soil erosion, and on the x-axis there is the number of people who are affected by all these environmental or land use practices. And without the intervention of soil erosion control, people's houses were affected, the avoided loss to crop was also kept, the roads which are not properly concealed, they were also fixed, and that was something that would even affect business to transport goods from one point to the other, even kids to go to school. And we can see also with the carbon in the soil, it was kept, they avoided productivity loss in terms of grazing. And also critically, on your far right, you can see that there was also reduction of sedimentation into the river as the erosion was minimized and kept low. And so it made me realize that there are so many dimensions to the soil. And if we can take care of the soil and ensure that we utilize it in accordance with best practices, there are so many things that can be done to uplift a rural livelihood and agriculture as a whole.
Just before we move on from that, just to add a couple of things from what Tsepo has said. I think Quibus and Tsepo have been really good at speaking to the physical health that sort of heal the land, heal the people brings together. And just to maybe even first of all touch on the sustainable development goals and how this initiative in and of itself is able to localize those sustainable development goals. Because on many occasions when we see the sustainable development goals, we see them as these very abstract ideas, right? These very international ideas, these big ideas, and we don't know what to do with them. If you don't mind just going back one slide where they show all of those sustainable development goals, perfect. So with something like heal the land, heal the people, what that allows is for, first of all, to eradicate poverty, zero hunger. So all of the ones that have been circled, but also things like quality education, right? Because I mean, if a person is being fed properly, then that ensures that they are able to excel well at school. Or gender equality, if we're saying that we're bringing equality towards agribusiness as well as sort of agriculture as a whole, that would ensure that there are things such as gender equality, decent work, and economic growth. As well as what this initiative actually is, which is goal number 17, that is for partnerships, partnerships to ensure that the goals work. But also, I think what is really important is, which I think will be spoken to within the next aspect of this segment, is to actually speak towards healing the people in social ways as well. And I don't want to delve too much into the next presentation, but I think that there's sort of the physical aspect of healing and there's the social aspect of healing. And I think if we can find ways in which we can play around with those different types of healing and bring them together, then once again, we could have things such as successful regenerative agriculture, as well as things such as social cohesion, bringing people together through a sort of regenerative agriculture, bringing people together through food. But I think we'll touch on that a bit later on. But thank you very much, Quibus.
the threats to our social cohesion, if you know, we are currently enjoying equal socioeconomic, political, and civil rights in a non-racial and non-sexist society. But social cohesion will only come about when South Africans have a common perception of the nation, when they trust institutions, and when they live in integrated human settlements. I think that is so significant and so important. If you think about what we try to do is heal the land, heal the nation, can we not get a common perception of our nation again? You know, something like the World Cup, the 3 World Cups that we have won. You know, they brought us together, and I think it's time that we find a common perception of a common truth or a common goal for us South Africans again. You know, when we trust institutions, I mean, this is not something I'm saying. This is, you know, good research, and we don't trust institutions at the moment because they don't deliver. And then obviously integrated human settlements. That's why we speak about developing communities, developing people, and healing people in those areas. If you look on the right hand side, South Africa society is still very fragmented today, fueled by poverty, racism, inequality, and misunderstanding between ethnic and cultural groups. Now, at the bottom there, you know, South Africa remains a deeply divided society. The next slide, please. You know, if this topic, you know, the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation also have come up with this societal channel, not come up with it, you know, that's existing. And there's need for mechanisms to overcome these disagreements. Therefore, we have this webinar today. Therefore, we have this movement today. We must come up with mechanisms how to move forward and find a common goal again. You know, this morning, I heard experts are saying after the announcement last night that the COVID-19 epidemic is now in the hands of society, of people to manage it. And you know, we can do it again if we stand together like we have done it in the past. And that's why we are trying to get this together to get to a common goal again. You know, the next point there's a trust deficit amongst broader South African society. If we trust our systems again, you know, we can take it to our soils again, to our food again. If we trust it, that is a mechanism how we can sort of build our social cohesion again. It says that in a society in which there are high levels of division and distrust, social groupings are unlikely to come together and hold their political leaders accountable. Conversely, in such a society, opportunistic political actors are presented with a greater opportunity to capitalize on these cleavages for their personal gain. And absolutely, I have nothing to explain there. We all know what is going on there. So can you see those 3 factors? Triangle, you know, it is our mechanism to exclude or to eradicate poverty, unemployment, to get our trust amongst each other back again. And then obviously, you know, to identify with what we are and who we are. At the bottom there, you know, I found this so proverbial and true. At its heart, social cohesion refers to the proverbial glue, cement or fabric that holds a group or society together, be that group defined at a familial, communal, cultural, regional, nation state, or any other level. The next session, ladies and gentlemen, is the role of the 4th industrial revolution in regenerative agriculture. And again, we have asked Tsepo Morokeng to come in and present it. And we will also have Jerry Weber. And Jerry Weber is a immunologist by trade and owner of Green Bio. And he is raising animals without antibiotics, also slotting in very nicely with the way food is produced in South Africa. So, Tsepo, can you please take it away and continue with the role of 4IR?
Oh, thank you, Cobus. Yes, we can move to the next slide. Oh, yes, whilst it's still on that, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we yes, fourth industrial revolution has become a buzzword, and um, we try to identify like some of the factors which drive people to more influence them to move into sustainable farming systems. I like to enter it this way. And we realized that there's a lot of move to more sustainable farming system because of the high costs of input. And in South Africa in particular, we import most of our input from other countries. And the other thing which is kind of creating a move from more sustainable farming systems is the scarcity or constraint of natural resources like water or arable land, and also the issues of climate change are some of the factors shaping how people are farming this day, more especially because the rainfall distributions are infrequent. There are shifts in the patterns, and so it's not quite easy to plan around that. And high temperatures, we know about these effects of climate change, including the droughts and so on. And another factor is the whole issue around consumer awareness and concerns about the environment and food safety. And that has created a niche market for some of the uh, agricultural produce which have been uh, produced based on sound agricultural practices. And lastly, but not least, is the decreasing cost of some of the agricultural technologies, which has been behind driving the move to this environmentally benign types of agricultural farming system, of which the regenerative agriculture is one of those. Yes, it is said that in most people, or the generation of people, have seen the all three industrial revolutions in their time. And, with industrial revolutions comes a lot of changes in terms of our economic and systems and social structures. But the one thing that is certain is that industrial revolutions, when they come, the ones who are the first to jump into the ship, they tend to gain a competitive edge and make the most out of the opportunity. So this can be traced back to so many years back, like in the 18th century, where in the context of agriculture, we used to rely a lot on animal power, like cattle and the like. And now with the introduction of machineries like your steam engine and all of those things, we saw a lot of movement to mechanize power, and as the science and the engineering within agriculture evolved. And in the 19th century and towards early 20th century, we started seeing some breakthroughs in the area of mass production, in the area of communication, also as influenced by the Green Revolution and some of the farming methods that were adopted, and also the GMOs, were first GM genetically modified organisms. We had them then, and in the third century industrial revolution, it happened like half a century ago, and this is characterized by the computers, digital world, and we saw also much improvement in some of the crops and the yields, the usage of pesticides, mechanization, satellite imageries, which we have found ways of integrating into agriculture. So yes, I was saying in the third industrial revolution, that's when we started seeing a lot of this technological, more especially the satellites, technologies, mobile devices being used to support agriculture. And now that we are at the early stages of what is now called the fourth industrial revolution, the World Economic Forum said that the fourth industrial revolution is expected to bring change and at the speed and scale and force like anything we have ever experienced. And I think one of the distinguishing factors about the fourth industrial revolution compared to its predecessors is that it is able to it is a fusion or an interplay of your digital, your physical and cyber systems together. And right there are quite emergent properties as one synergizes different technologies to achieve certain outputs. And agricultural sector, unfortunately, it is not excused from this because we are part of the global community, and there are quite a number of factors which I would like to kind of look at. Um, I will touch on the key things because there is an in-depth report which is available, which was commissioned by the Western Cape Department of Agriculture in collaboration with the University of Stellenbosch Business School. And one of the major things which they have identified to be influencing the adoption of the new technologies that we are seeing at play is the high costs of the agricultural technologies, because we still import them. Whereas most countries in their countries is very affordable because they make it a localized advantage. And another thing is that most agri technologies that are currently used in the farms, they do not have the digital technology, and they are not networked. So it's not easy to kind of integrate them or upgrade the software or other things so as to link them with the new ones. And also, we know that a significant population of the farmers that we have, they are old. It's not necessarily young people, and there is that limited tech competence in terms of adoption. But I think this is one of the important contributions that the fourth industrial revolution is going to bring in terms of attracting young people, because what this technology is going to be doing is rebranding technology to make it more appealing to young people who are tech savvy and so on. And the communication infrastructure, we know that in most rural areas in South Africa are still inadequate. And as I indicated earlier on, we've got standalone technologies which do not communicate with each other, and this makes it really ineffective for one to work with them. And there is a lot of data that is being mined with these types of technologies, and therefore there's a lot of need for data protection and data sovereignty to be ensured. And also with the data that is being collected, it is so big, it's referred to as big data, and for one to draw value and meaning out of it, it requires quite advanced techniques and skills for one to use it in their farm to kind of optimize how they currently run the farm. And also there are other rapidly, the types of technologies which I kind of picked out a few. I think there's more, but the ones that speak to one of the major constraints, which is water, is the one on remote sensing. Because what it does, it's able to draw satellite info, using the satellite, draw information on how well the crops are doing and the water usage of the crops. And with that information, a farmer is able to see how much the water is being used. As most farmers normally say, that it is not easy to manage what you cannot measure. So I think this is one of those things that the technologies we have to bring. Okay, just
Thank
move to the next one.
thank you.
So quickly,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah,
Yes.
so the
People, yeah.
other technology. Okay. So the other one, what we have is smart farming, and we've got precision farming. And normally, at times, they are used interchangeably. And so what this tells you is when a farm is using the modern technologies in a way that allows a farmer to use the resources precisely as they are required, as in when they are required, because these types of technologies that one has as part of their farming operation enables them to have real data or information in real time, and so they're able to act in time and do whatever interventions are required. And there are other things like the Internet of Things. We know about the cell phones. The other uh, sensors which can update farmers whether there's the soil lacks water, there's less moisture, and so on. So the possibilities with the type of technologies that the fourth industrial revolution is bringing, it is wide, and it will require a lot of open-mindedness about it, a lot of training, a lot of capacity building, and also mainstreaming for it to be guided in terms of for farmers to know which of the technologies they should venture into. Yes, so lastly, in this slide that is presented, these are some of the technological innovations that have been demonstrated to be able to do automated work, which used to be done by people. And one of them is the grape pruning arm. It is fully automated, it's robotics, and it was developed to autonomously prune and and using a model that is within it to capture the structure of the vein and cut accordingly based on the rules that it has been given and so on. And also we've got a sensory technology. So it also works effectively in that it is able to distinguish the things that are needed on a plant from those that are not, and it touches, and it allows for immediate intervention where it is required. Although at the time when this was captured, it was shown that it was at the experimental stage. And lastly, there is the DERPA Grand Challenge, which normally takes place in the US, where a number of people compete with cars that are autonomously or remotely driven. And these cars, they drive through staircases, they navigate in rebels, and they drive in terrains that are daunting to drive with a normal car. And I think the applications of it, we've seen them now also with the new driverless tractors that are being used also in the Free State. I've seen that happening and so on. So there's quite a number of manual work which we used to see, which going forward, it will require that the primary sector will need to upskill. And these
Okay.
technologies applied appropriately, they can complement regenerative agriculture big time.
Okay, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Tsepo. Yeah, thank you so much.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity of talking here. My name is Jaap Not. I'm a co-owner of Nepo, South Africa. We are selling restoration in a bag. We heard this morning that crop production should change to regenerative agriculture, but so also the way food is processed. And in this way, in our case, the way maize is milled. Keep it as pure as possible. The vision and the background of Nepo South Africa. As a company, we develop healthy, protein-rich food which should be locally available and affordable. Our key word is localizing markets. It started about 10 years ago, the company, when I was working in Lesotho as a consultant promoting conservation agriculture and farming God's way, that among the farmers we saw a lot of poverty and malnutrition. And when we did the food security scores, we saw that they have diets low in meat, pulses and dairy products. And that made me think in terms of agribusiness. And then we started by making roasted soya nuts, of roasted soya. But that was seen as a snack, and we are promoting of developing the staple foods now. And that's what I want to talk about today with the Nepo Pure Pap, which is an 80% maize, 20% soya blend. The University of Pretoria made a report for labeling purposes for our soya nuts, which is the forerunner of our blend. But I want to highlight two things out of that report, and that's written in red font, that soya for human consumption is increasing. Secondly, the protein requirements are met when complementary foods combined. And that's exactly what we are doing when we combine a legume and a grain, in this case maize and soya. So this is our product. This is non-GM maize and soya that we use. We are buying from farmers that are practicing conservation agriculture. We mill it whole grain, slightly sifted only, and it's locally packed. Here you can see the three categories of conservation or regenerative agriculture farmers that we are buying from. You see the commercial, smallholder, and then the subsistence farmer. Our grain is coming completely from commercial farmers. Although we, as Nepo South Africa, as well as our partners, promote smallholder and subsistence farming development. Schematically, this is how it looks like. You see the three farmer groups on the top left, the commercial, smallholders and subsistence. and as contract farmers then producing for our mills. Now we have a community mill, and outsourcing milling is what we do in Lesotho, but we also have discussions at the moment of using industrial mills for the same blend. Here you see pictures of a mill that is in Lesotho. Lesotho have plenty of mills like this, and we are using local entrepreneurs, local millers like this to mill our milli meal of our blend, and that creates jobs. Here are two slides that we use showing the community mill that is in Escort, Ntabamtlope. There's a community mill. You can see in this picture that is the offloading of the maize. Here you can see the mill in full. This is the community mill in Ntabamtlope. The green container is where you see the mill. It's a roller mill. That is quite a unique mill in the sense that it's working on single phase power, and it can then also work on solar power. So this is unique, and it can be rolled out in any place and in rural areas in South Africa and Africa. The yellow container on top is the storage bin where the maize and the soya is in, and from there it feeds into the mill. So below you see that the local people are packing the bags, and that creates work and jobs. The typical nutritional information about our Nepo Pure Pap as compared to other brands. So we took 12 other maize meal varieties from an at random store. It was a SPAR, and we looked at it. So on the left side you see the column, the description, which is the normal or the standard, labeling ingredients what is needed, and you see from energy all to total sodium. And then you can compare the red column, the red font, with the other millimeals. But in the next slide I will show you the average, and then it's for better reading. So comparing the Nepo Pure Pap with the average maize meal, the 12 other blends that we just shown in the other table, and you can see that the Pure Pap is definitely much higher on energy and much higher on protein, and that obviously comes for the soya that was added to it. So we did a ranking on it where some figures are ranking in reverse and others are ranking in normal. Value for money. If you're looking at the Nepo Pure Pap, where you see the red arrow, there's a church and a retail network. The church network is cheaper because it doesn't have the retail markup. So what we did in terms of value for money exercise here, we looked at the energy and the protein that was way higher for the Nepo Pure Pap and compared it with the other millimeals, the other 12. And giving an equal weight of 50% to each one, you see that the scoring and the rank then. So finally, Nepo Pure Pap scores the best in terms of energy and protein, and that is how we should start looking at millimeal and at food.
Good morning, this is Anna Kruger. I am the Director of Mahlatini Development Foundation. We work with the rural poor, and we focus on agricultural innovation systems and participatory methodologies in our quest to help smallholders be more sustainable and more resilient. We've worked extensively in terms of trying to build climate change resilience and with regenerative agriculture for smallholder farming systems. Our regenerative agricultural activities consist of conservation agriculture, livestock integration, and also linking social organization to that. We work with around 520 smallholder participants in KwaZulu-Natal. clustered in 3 different areas, which we call Bergville, the Midlands, and Southern KZN. And we've been working with them for around 7 years. In this time, we've managed to improve the average yields of these participants to 4 to 5 tons per hectare. Soil organic carbon has improved roughly at about 0.75 tons per hectare per annum, and we've helped them to improve their crop diversity from 1 to 2 crop types to 8 to 9 crop types and reduced runoff. These are photographs and examples of some of the work that we're doing. We support local farmer centres that are village-based, that help supply the other smallholders and farmers and participants with inputs, and also more general supplies for their households to keep the farmer centres going as they are run as small businesses. The second top picture is an example of a summer cover crop mix, which is common. We use sunflowers, millet, and sun hemp. Next to that is the winter cover crop mix, or the winter master, that we tend to use, which is sire oats, fodder rye, and fodder radish. And top right is a patch of dolichos. So participants undertake their experimentation and they plant different plots of different crops and different combinations. So bottom left is an example of strip cropping, where we're planting perennial fodder in between short season maize. The middle is a mixture of maize and cowpea, and the bottom right is an example of a late bean planting alongside the short season maize and other conservation agriculture plots. We have undertaken a COVID response survey for some of our participants. I think we had about 28 participants involved. It was quite a long individual questionnaire that we went through. Here I'm just summarizing what participants see as their most urgent requests, and also a summary of the production for this period from different villages. The table in the right shows a list in decreasing order of importance of the support that smallholders have asked for. Most of it is productive support, so seedlings for winter vegetable production, and then also for those farmers who are not entirely organized in terms of their vegetable gardens, support for fencing, water, seed, pesticides, and advice. So they were asking for help with that. Food parcels were requested only by the one group in Escort, which is a group that we work with in association with another organization, and we don't spend a lot of time there. Then they also wanted support for livestock production, assistance for transport to town, assistance with education for children. So that was a big issue for them, is that the children are at home, they not being educated and not having their normal meals. They needed more storage drums for their maize harvests. They wanted some support for broiler production. So if we look at that, it's primarily issues with productive support to get themselves going quickly during this time, because there is a bit of an increased demand locally for food, or actually a big increase. The second table shows the average production for the different areas in terms of their field crops: maize, beans, sweet potatoes and pumpkins, and then also their vegetables. So from this, Bergville participants will be able to provision for their homesteads for about 6 to 9 months, 6 months, 2 to 9 months for their maize. For the Midlands, it's an average of 2 months, and then for Escort, an average of 1.5. So Escort is a bit of a baseline because people haven't been using the regenerative agriculture processes much. beans, so average of 2 months, 2 months and then 1.5 months for Escort. The other field crops are 3 months for Bergville and then less again for the other areas. And vegetables is just small quantities to supplement people's bought food. Sales have been mainly in the Midlands, which is closer to the large urban centres. So transport of produce for marketing has been a major issue during this lockdown process, and it has only really been possible around these larger centres. So for them, they've been able to make a much larger income of around 2,500 Rand a month from their produce. Other farmers have been selling locally, and then they've made a much smaller income during this time. So it shows that the farmers participating in resilient agriculture processes are more resilient to climate change and to shocks and stresses in their environment, but they're still vulnerable to food shortages in the medium terms, which is in the next 6 and 12 months under these extended lockdown conditions. Here we have a summary of something that we call resilience snapshots, which are individual interviews that we undertake at certain points in time during the year and during the season, and we just build on these on an ongoing basis. The resilience indicators have been developed extensively and in a participatory manner with the farmers, with the extension staff, and through discussions and desktop studies. So they include increase in size of farming activity. So it's the area in which people farm. So it shows that their gardening has increased by 18%, field cropping 63%, and the number of livestock have improved by 31% over their period of involvement. Increase in farming activities is the number of activities, the diversity of the farming system. Really, everybody is involved in gardening, field cropping, and livestock as much as possible. Increased season, yes. So we've tried to extend the season into autumn and winter so that we could ensure soil cover for the longest period of time during the year. Crop diversity, we've improved that by introducing 12 new crops, as well as looking at different management options. Increased productivity is really the yield increases, and it's around 70 to 80% for the gardening and field cropping, and 25% for the livestock in terms of improved nutrition from supplementation through the regenerative agriculture. Increased water use efficiency we looked at increased incomes, which was about 13% higher than before. Household food provisioning, as we've said, is enough but can become a problem. We've looked at increased savings, so people do savings, and we've looked at whether they increase those savings on a monthly basis. We've also assessed with the COVID how these groups are going, and most of them have undertaken to continue saving. We were afraid that they would immediately withdraw their savings to deal with their cash flow problems. Increased social agency is how many groups and social organizations people work with. And decision making is who people speak to in terms of getting information and advice to be able to make decisions. The positive mindsets is just a kind of barometer of how people are feeling about their lives and their livelihoods. So they are feeling much more positive about the future than before they were involved. This is another exercise that we use in terms of looking at the impact of the activities on people on the smallholder farming system. It's a participatory impact assessment. Here the farmers themselves come up with and agree on the indicators they're going to use and the activities, and then they rate it in this kind of a matrix format. So the indicators are in the top row and the activities along the columns. Indicators that they chose, and we found this very interesting because they're quite complicated and insightful indicators. So they wanted to look at soil health and soil fertility together. Their concept of money was around income and savings, both together. Productivity related for them around the acceptance of the practice, savings in farming, equipment and labor. Knowledge for them was increased knowledge and the ability to use it. Food was how much we produced and how healthy it is. Water was around use and access. And social agency was around support and empowerment for them. So from these, the conservation agriculture has come up by far as the most important regenerative agriculture practice that they are presently using and that has been introduced. Gardening is a reasonably close second. They included crop rotation and intercropping as separate activities because they're quite new to them, and it has needed the farmers to make a change and a shift in their whole farming process and the logistics of their farming. So it has been quite a big issue for them. Then small businesses and savings. In conclusion, the regenerative agriculture practices have been able to help farmers to build more resilience to climate change and resilience to other shocks and stresses in their environment to ensure local food supply and incomes through sale of surplus. It has helped them to withstand this COVID-19 lockdown period and I think they can probably internalize the extra costs and the extra stress for about 4 to 6 months. But after that, we're likely to still see some food shortages due to both the lockdown and the economic turndown. Thank you very much.
We thought, it's quite important that we go to the presentation by Andrew Ardington on food clubs or food of the people. And I just want to quickly introduce Andrew. Andrew is an agricultural economist, and he is doing fantastic work in agriculture, tourism, and conservation. So Andrew, please, quick presentation from you.
Okay, so I'm from the Regenerative Agricultural Association of South Africa and the Food Club Hub, and we're very honoured to be part of this launch today and the whole concept of heal the land, heal the people, which is very integral to what we are doing and what we believe. And we're here today to talk about healing people and our communities with food. How do we do this? So we'll start off by looking at our current system, and our current system is failing us entirely, and we need to change the system. The current system is not delivering the services that the food is supposed to, or our food is supposed to deliver to us. We have, under this current system, witnessed an explosion in inflammatory diseases like diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. And all of these are part of the failings of our current system. And we need to set about changing this. And this is not going to be easy. It's never easy to change a system. And it's going to be a journey. And it's a journey that we require both consumers and producers to work together on. And we saw earlier today in this brilliant webinar, some of the producers that are already producing regenerative foods and regenerative food systems. And that is really where we need to move to. Now, what is wrong with the current system? We heard already how it is destroying our soils. Hendrik and some of his people representing his section spoke about this. And as we destroy our soil, we destroy any chance of any future food security. Food security, as we've also heard, is an essential part of what we need to do. And if we don't have our topsoil, we don't have food security. Now, the current production mechanism does not focus on producing nutrient-dense foods. It has been trained for years now to produce high yields. That is all they focus on. paying no attention to the nutrient value of what is being produced. Thereafter, this food is treated like Lego. We break it down and we think we can just take all the parts together apart and then put them back together again. And it's not Lego. Complex biological product, and we destroy it in that process. We destroy the nutrient value. And it is also the production process is designed to maximize shelf life of products and to make us want to eat more of them rather than for our health. And so all of this, as you can tell, is exactly the opposite of what we need in terms of healing people and providing healthy foods. So we need to change to a system that produces nutrient-rich foods, that regenerates our environment, that is transparent, that maintains nutrient density, that sees food as medicine. And in short, we need to change to a food that heals the land and consequently heals the people. Now, we can't do this without changing the food chain. And the way we're going to do this is by creating food clubs. And to this end, we have launched the Food Club Hub, which is a web application that enables us to more easily start a food club. And when people join these food clubs, they're able to source nutrient-dense foods from their community for their community. Now, what exactly is a food club? A food club is really a collection of people coming together to source these healthy foods and to get around the dominant food chain that we are all exposed to via supermarkets, etc. And it's about enabling people to access nutrient-dense foods by creating this alternative regenerative food chain. And a really important part of this, Quibus mentioned this earlier, is linking the soil microbiome and the gut microbiome and bringing these two as close together by having a smaller, more defined food chain with less role players. And it's about creating a community of people where they believe that the health impacts and environmental impacts of what they eat are significant. So via these food clubs that we're creating, we're going to start to build this new food chain, and the end result of that transition process is to have a food chain which produces staple foods for our country that are regeneratively produced, that are nutrient dense. And all of this is in our hands. If we come together as consumers and producers, we are able to achieve this. And with this process, we get healthy soils, we get healthy people, and we create a healthy planet. And we're able to improve the health of people and communities and really impact on the healthcare. Imagine the economic impact of declines in all of these diseases that are caused by us living off an unhealthy food chain, an unhealthy food system. And so food club by food club, regenerative farmer by regenerative farmer, we're going to start the process of healing the land and its people. Thank you, Quibus.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Yes, and we must apologize. We had a couple of technical glitches along the way in this session, Dawn. And I just want to finally conclude that, you know, in a climate of ongoing dialogue, which creates mutual understanding, if not agreement, and this is enough to hold a country together. I want to conclude that, you know, if we as a country come together, find a common goal again, and sort of buy in or support and pledge this heal the land, heal the people movement, we may come to that point again where we are a truly rainbow nation again, and become the poster child of our global community, where we show them how we regenerate the land and produce healthy food to come to a point where we sort of heal or restore our nation and our social cohesion. So I think, you know, with that as a conclusion, I want to hand over now to the next session and Dr. Pieter Prinsloo, who is going to take us through the topic of food with integrity. Thank you, Dawn.